Hey class, hope you guys are doing well. I hope everyone had a good break. I've caught up with most grading, so if there's anything you're missing right now, as always, email me. Oh, sorry. Long day today, so I apologize. I normally would have had this up a little bit earlier for y'all, but I have been working on getting your persuasive speech assignment rubrics up in the description, and I'm getting that up to Blackboard with you. It should be visible right now. It is not due immediately. We will be working on presenting it next week, and I might have an extra day that following Monday, the week of final, like our final exam day week. So what you're going to be doing in your persuasive presentation is essentially giving a pitch or trying to persuade a company or an employer from your dream job to hire you. So all of the assets that we're going to be building around that, they're going to be, we're going to be talking about it today a little bit. So they're going to also, all of the elements that you'll need with that will be going to supplement that presentation that we're doing. So you're going to kind of create a 3 to 5 minute pitch with all of your work experience, with your talents, your hobbies, and things that make you a good candidate for that position, if that makes any sense. So I'm going to attach a video tomorrow of myself doing it. And I've had to do a couple of these video interview formats, and they're not fun, but you likely, especially nowadays, you might have to do something similar to that, or you might have to conduct an interview through Zoom or online. So I really wanted to use this presentation to equip you for something you're probably going to have to do in your work life. You will absolutely at some point conduct an interview for any job that you have. I imagine I had to, when I was in college, I had to do an interview for Bahama Bucks, which was a snow cone stand. So hopefully you have had an interview, or you will, and if you haven't, you'll have one coming up at some point. So the description for this persuasive speech is: the speech is an opportunity to sell yourself to a potential employer. Goal is to give a thorough overview of your work history, education, life experience to show how you make an ideal candidate for the dream job of your choice. It can also be just a promotion if you're working in a certain industry right now and you want to level up something specific. So you have to have a real job in mind, and I would like a full job description. So when you get into your, we're not going to do an outline. You don't need to turn in an outline to me. But when you are creating the format for your speech, you will need to state, I am so-and-so. Today I'm applying for blank position, so that I know exactly what job you're going to be applying for. And so you'll also need to have a job description that states kind of what the qualifications are, and what the different responsibilities of the job are. So within this, you will have resources or sources, just like you did in your informative presentation, but you will be using those to supplement you as a candidate. So if you are, let's say I'm interviewing for a position that is, the cover letter I put up was for, I think, a clubs manager at Dickies Arena in Fort Worth. So I would probably use 2 sources. One might be from somebody like an entertainment industry blog that states, you know, what people are looking for, or what the industry is doing, or what's challenging, or anything that supports that I'm a good candidate for that position. You can also use the hiring site. So if it's someone like a company like Lockheed Martin, and use their website as a source that says, you know, these are our ideal candidates, something along those lines, that's a resource as well if you want to use that. Totally up to you. If you have questions on if you think something is appropriate, just let me know. So with that, you're going to turn in a resume or a cover letter. It's totally up to you guys. I don't need you to do both. You can do either or. and we'll go over a little bit resumes and cover letters today. And I put mine up as a template. It's very expansive, so I don't want you to get nervous when you look at mine. I've always rehash mine and work on it continually. So I've got 15 years of work experience that you're looking at, including, my master's work and my education and my consulting work that I do in communications. And so if you're looking at that and thinking, that's pretty expansive, it's just an example. And I'll give you guys a couple more examples on that tomorrow. I'll put some simpler ones up, because I know some of y'all are like right out of high school looking at that like, my God, that's a lot. And we'll go over some rules of thumb with resumes, that type of thing. So you will have a resume cover letter that you need to turn in before you give your speech. And the other things are the same as your last presentation. So the criterion that I used to grade your informative is the same. 100 points, a visual aid worth 10 points, your same source formatting, and a resume or cover letter as the other thing. So the other thing that's going to be due between now and in the next 2 weeks is a group activity, or I'm calling it a group activity, but it's really a partner activity, where you're going to conduct a mock interview with one another. This doesn't have to be recorded. It just needs to be you and a classmate. And I'm going to figure out how to sync y'all up together. So just give me until tomorrow to kind of think through how I can tie everyone together. And there may be an odd number system. Y'all might be a group of 3. So in your group activity, you are going to mock interview each other. And you will share your resume with one another or cover letter, and you'll conduct a fake interview with each other. Doesn't have to be formal. I don't need you to dress up like, extremely like business-like in this. It just needs to be the idea of you talking to someone and asking these questions to them. So that is the group activity that is going to be assigned between now and the end of the semester, if that makes sense. So the due date on the mock interview is next Sunday. So hold on, sorry guys, I'm kind of flying by the seat of my pants. Calendar. So that will be the 13th. So that's due by the 13th. You of course have your quiz this week and your discussion board. So the only thing you need to turn in by the end of this week is your discussion board and your quiz. But you are going to have discussion board quiz this week. Between next week and the end of the semester, okay, so 10 days essentially, you'll have your persuasive speech to turn in, and we are going to do that in live class sessions. So I will put up a form where you guys are actually presenting in a Blackboard session, okay? So this one isn't recorded. You have to sign up and you have to attend a live Blackboard session, okay? In order for me to watch live. And you will also have a peer review. So you will print off and kind of give feedback to somebody who presented themselves in the session. You can choose whoever you want. It's just so that I see you're paying attention and you understand the grading rubric from an outsider's perspective. Then you'll have a quiz. We'll have a quiz next week. It's going to be really short because it's only one chapter, one more discussion board, and a final exam. So we got a lot going on between this week and the next 2 weeks. And I'm going to be as available as y'all need me to be, except for next Thursday evening. I am driving again. So that I will pre-record. And that will probably be next Thursday will probably be your final exam review. So your final exam will be due by Wednesday, let's see. Wednesday the 16th by noon. Okay, so I'm going to list upcoming dates for you guys. I'm writing all this down because I'm telling you a lot of things I'm about to throw at you by tomorrow. So I'm going to need an example resume, a simpler one for you guys, and cover letter. And there's tons of templates in Word. If you just you go into Microsoft Word, you can find examples that you can revise from there. So, and then a calendar of due dates I need to provide to you, and I will also need to provide to you a means to connect with your mock interview, okay? So, I know y'all are probably thinking, this is a lot, but we're gonna work through it, okay? I don't want you to think you gotta turn this all in right away, right? Like, just like anything, we're gonna go through some more of the learning modules, and then we'll work through it, and we'll just progress until we get everything turned in, just like we always do. So, just grip down and bear it, and be ready to put in some work the next couple of weeks, but we've got plenty of time to get all of it done, so I don't want you to lose any hope there. So that is upcoming assignments, class discussion, coursework, that type of thing, okay? That's everything that's coming down the pipeline. So this week, the only thing you're gonna turn in quiz 5 like we always do on Sunday, and our discussion board. And this week, our discussion board is about interviews. And so what I specifically wanted to see was a time when you had a bad interview. I've had a lot of really bad interviews. When I was learning how to interview, I really always answered very, very literally and exactly how I was taught how to answer. And I also went through a lot of interviews with jobs that had a lot of high turnover. So they didn't really use inventive or creative formats for conducting interviews. It was just, the same benign questions that you get asked. And so there's a lot of different ways people can conduct interviews. And the further along you get in a vetting process, the more elaborate the types of questions they're going to ask you are. So I just went through a 9-month interview process for a job that I did not get. Long story, but I interviewed for 9 months, and they did an extremely comprehensive series of interviews. And by the end, they had gone through my entire extensive work history. So some interviews will be extremely, extremely stringent. I had a friend who she interviewed for Homeland Security, and she had to take a lie detector test. She had to take a full 2.5-hour interview where she had to basically list her whole life story. So that could be something that you get in down the road, depending on what type of clearance a job might have, what type of responsibilities. The more jobs pay, the more they usually vet for that person. And so just to let you know, it's not a fun thing. I don't know a lot of people who love to interview, but it is something that's necessary in any career path. So the great thing is when you're interviewing, all you're doing is talking about yourself. And who does not love to talk about themselves nowadays, right? So the great thing, and the reason I love this mock interview is because when you go through and you ask these questions, and you can look at these questions before you conduct the mock interview with your classmate, but it helps you get tracking and thinking about your own work history. And I hope that builds confidence in you, or kind of allows you to think, what are employers looking for? What has my career history shown? What is the overall narrative? What have I learned from my career? And how can you bring that into an interview and provide clarity into your work experience? And so give these interview workshop questions a stab and look at them. This is a specific type of format question. It's called a STAR, which is situational, task. I don't remember. That's not a quiz question, so don't worry about that. But these are a specific type of questioning method. So these will get your brain kind of thinking about your work history. So for your chapter 8, sorry, that's a lot. Moving into chapter 8, and I'll go through this as quick as I can for you guys, but be sure to watch the PowerPoint. And chapter 8 is specifically talking about the goals of interviews. And so in chapter 7, and it's not listed as anything we're going through, but chapter 7 was kind of interviewing principles and skills and the ethics of interviewing. And that's more so from the prospect of like you being the interviewer. So I'm not going to grade you on how you interview people, because that's a skill that far less people do. Everyone interviews from everyone is in an interview, but a much smaller number conduct an interview. So, and I think very few people are trained for it as well. So I don't want you to feel like you're going to be graded on that. So we are looking at, in chapter 8 specifically, the goals of interview, the purpose of interviews, what we're trying to get from it, the types that you might have to go through. Just your traditional conversation interview that you will go through. It's called an information gathering interview. And that is, it's focused and it's structured, and it's a conversation seeking information from another person, right? So usually they have a list of the questions that relate directly to the position. It's not necessarily personality. They're going to gauge your personality in that, but it's more so just about figuring out anything they may not know that's on your resume or cover letter or something along those lines. So they're just trying to get a better understanding of who you are. That's the most common format. And there's also what they call a career search information interview. So a career search information interview is probably going to be similar to what you might go through with like a recruiter. I've gone through a couple of these, and that's a interview that gathers information for potential job opportunities. So that would be something like you talk to a recruiter, or maybe when you are when you're conducting collegiate interviews with a counselor and you're trying to extract a wide, broad reach of information of potentials for you, that is a career search information interview. So it is trying to figure out, what is this industry like? What's a good fit for me? What are potential companies that I could work for? What are job descriptions? That's just you figuring out, where do I kind of think of next steps of where I want to go along in my career. You traditionally will only do one of those before you get tracking in your career. So information gathering interviews, okay, that's what we're calling just a basic interview, information gathering interviews. So the process of that is you open the interview, you want to give a nice first impression. You always dress for the job that you want. Of course, today I'm in like a schlubby sweater, but you always dress for the job you want. So if you are coming in as you're a mid-level employee and you're dressing, you want to be an executive, you want to dress as an executive, right? And so you open the interview and then you process the interview, which is where you get into the questions like we do in our mock interview, the questions I have listed here. And then you close it. And that's it. You just go through all the questions, you formally close it, usually allow room for questions. So you say, is there anything you have, any questions you have on your end? I always say, always bring a set of a couple of questions. It just makes you look more prepared as the interviewee, that you have followed through and maybe read something about a job description, or you look like you are invested in the interview. So I say bring at least 3. And if you guys have questions on like what type of question to ask, I like to ask, how does my position work in reference with the manager or with my manager, or how autonomous might I be in this position? What are some areas for growth, or what are some areas of continuing education that you guys provide? What are ways you see this industry growing? What are any difficulties you've had with employees in this position before? What are any hesitations you have with someone in this position? I do always like to ask any issues they've had with positions, because usually people interviewing have like PTSD from past employees that have been in that position. So they have things that they're sensitive about when they're interviewing you. So I do like to kind of figure out what those trigger points are. But those are that's the normal step that you go through to process through information gathering interviews, right? So the goal of the conversation in an interview is for the interviewer to assess what your skills are for employment, right? That's it. It's to figure out, do you have the right fully like rounded set of talents and work ethic and work experience and the right personality fit or the right type of attitude that's going to fit in that position. That's really it. I mean, it's not necessarily do they like you. It matters if, you know, they think you're a good fit, but it's not to, you know, do a once over and scrutinize they don't like your social media or anything along those lines. It's just to figure out how your skills work specifically for that position. So, and that's why resumes really matter, because resumes are the first impression. Usually, like on LinkedIn, you've got your full resume listed, and some jobs, some LinkedIn positions, when you apply, it just pulls all that information. So they may not even get to see your full expansive resume. They just see your work history, education. So that's someone's first impression of you is your resume, usually in your cover letter. And so that's why it has to have everything listed. So there's no questions going into an interview, or there's no questions about, you know, what type of employee you're going to be. They have a full list of your comprehensive work experience. So how you build your resume is totally up to you. I built mine with my work experience on front, education on back, because I've been working for so long. I've been working for, 15 years. I think that's a long time. It's been a long time, Val. So I've been working for 15 years since college. And so I just have a more expansive work history. So I list my work history on the front, and then I list my my education and some other additional information on the back. So you always want your personal information on there, your name, your cell phone or whatever number is easiest to reach you at, and your email. Those are all, how are they going to get a hold of you? Some people list their career objective on a resume. I think you can or you can't. It's totally up to you. Most careers objectives I have rifled through sound the exact same. So I have not procured or not procured someone based off of their career objective. They tend to be very objective. So if you list it, great. If not, I don't think it's a make or break thing. You list your education on there, your work experience, any specific awards or accomplishments you have. If you speak more than one language, if you have been certified in anything, even if you like got certified in scuba diving and, you know, in high school, or anything that required work from you that you got a certificate from, or that you were awarded something specific, list that on there, because that gives people an idea of who you are as a person. I mean, your resume is not just about, you know, doling out your work history. It's about them getting to understand who you are in the big picture. Any additional optional information you have, I put some of my nonprofit work that I've done. I put the sorority I was in at Texas Tech, some professional organizations I've been in, or community organizations I've been in, like Big Brothers, Big Sisters, that type of thing. And then the last thing I always do is list my references. And so you want to make sure your references are somebody who gives you a good reference. So I know people joke about putting their best friends as their reference. You want to make sure if you do list your best friend as a reference, perhaps you'll have worked together at some capacity or, you know, they're being honest. So that's the full list of everything that you include in your resume. So just to give you kind of an idea of follow-up, a lot of times people say to send a formal letter when you follow up with an interview if you want the job. That's great. You're welcome to send a formal letter. If you think it's going to reach it in time, email to me is perfectly fine as a follow-up thank you, especially if it's a high, tight turnaround on the hiring of the position. I will tell you, don't text somebody. Like, don't text them unless it's the only method of communication you've had with an interviewer. Don't send them a text thanking them. It's just a little too informal for an interview, in my opinion. So I would avoid that form of communication. And then the last thing I had was, there's one other type of interview, and it's an appraisal. Sorry guys, the screen just went out. It's an appraisal interview, and so that is different. Sorry. An appraisal interview is different from an information seeking interview. Okay. Appraisal interview is like when you go in and you do your annual at work. And so, or a performance review is another way to look at it. And people get really nervous about these, because they can make or break a promotion, or they can bring to light some areas of weakness in your job. And so they can be really constructive, or they can be really nerve-wracking, or they can be both. Working in oil and gas, there's a major company out here that y'all would know the name of, and they do a very formal performance review every 2 years, where they basically review your employment, and if they think you've done a good job every 2 years, and if you haven't, then they fire you. They do a wage reduction. So people get pretty good at doing those interviews and knowing what to look for. And they also know ahead of time that they're coming down the pipeline. So they know like their job's on the line, and they have to continually perform at a good level and do well at their job, because they're going to have an appraisal interview. So the description of that is just when an interview, it's just where a leader employee shares information about your job performance. And I've had one in most jobs that I've been in, and they always seem more nerve-wracking than they are. So I don't want anyone to have any apprehension about those. Most of your jobs, your performance will be reviewed. So, if you're worried about taking a job where that's happening, any job that has promotions, this is going to be a normal part of your work life. And so if you're working for a really large company, like I worked for Lockheed Martin, I know people who work for Anheuser-Busch, they have a performance review every year with your manager. And so every year your manager has a metric system, and they give you a report card, and you're like, get to see it in writing, and it can be really nerve-wracking, but it's a very normal part of the work experience. So I know that's making some of y'all cringe, but I just want to give you a heads up. If you do work for larger companies, that's going to happen pretty regularly. So that is the basics, the chapter basics overviews of interviewing. I'm going to put up a little bit more for you guys tomorrow on this persuasive pitch, because it's going to be, you not conducting an interview, but you basically providing what would be needed in an interview. So I will put up just a quick little 3-minute, 3 to 5 is the time limit again on this. That should be more than enough time for you to get the idea of, or give the employer an idea of what makes you an ideal candidate. So if y'all have any questions between now and then, the quiz will be up in the morning. Oh, sorry. Hello? Hi, sorry, you're good. Sorry. Yeah, you're okay. If you guys have any questions, the quiz will be up in the morning over chapter 8 and chapter 9. And that's due Sunday along with your discussion board. That's it for this week. So we'll be talking about collaborating in teams, and that's what I'll put the video up for on Thursday. So I hope you guys had a good Thanksgiving, and I will chat hopefully with you all very soon. So we've got a lot to get done in the next couple weeks, but we can do it. So have a good Tuesday. I'll talk to you guys soon.